What's up, Lego builders? Well, welcome back to Coconut's Kingdom. I've slowly been building up my World War II Lego arsenal. But one thing I'm really missing out on still is German armor, which is not good considering how pivotal their tanks were both to their tactics and just the war in general. Germany built some of the best, but also most complicated and controversial tanks of World War II, and today I'm adding one of them to my collection as I build Panzer Bricklab's Panther tank. If you're ready for some big cat action, don't forget to open fire on that like button, and let's get started. This is the first German tank I've bought from Panzer Bricklabs and only the second German tank in my collection. As you can probably tell from previous videos, I'm a big fan of the Sherman, but I need something for them to fight, and I figured what better option than the Panther. This tank was meant to be a successor to the Panzer III and IV after they ran into trouble while invading Russia in 1941. Russian tanks proved to be too much for the German Panzer, so a tank commission was created to build something that was better armored, had a bigger gun, and was more maneuverable to combat the Russian T-34 and other tanks. Basically, the commission said build a better tank. Thus, the Panther and Tiger were born. The Panther is classified as a heavy tank, coming in at a hefty 45 tons, even though it was going to be deployed with medium tank companies. But right from the start, it had issues. There were mechanical problems, and the Germans even lost two unloading them from trains before they saw any action at all. But I think it's important to understand the big picture here before casting stones at the Panther. By this point in the conflict, Germany was fighting a war on multiple fronts. With dwindling resources and allies, the Panther had to be rushed into production and combat, meaning it didn't have the time to be properly tested, and tank crews didn't have the time for proper training. So there were many problems that could have been solved given more time and the right training. But even with all these issues, the Panther was still a very feared tank on the battlefield. It boasted a 7.5 centimeter KWK-42 gun, which at a medium range was more effective than even the 88mm gun of the Tiger tank. The Panther also had exceptional targeting capabilities, which is the worst combination you want to hear about if you're an allied tanker.
I'm in danger!
Many of the weaknesses and issues were addressed by around 1943, but that was too late in the war for the Panther to have any major effect, which, considering its potential, is a good thing. The tank's all done, and I have some thoughts on the build, but it needs a mock to be properly displayed. I've been struggling with freeform building and want to get better at it and figure out why it's so hard for me, so I thought I'd take this opportunity to practice. For anyone unfamiliar with the term freeform base, means a foundation built out of brick instead of using the traditional molded base plate. It's more work and requires more pieces, but you can create any size and shape you want, and they look much cooler. In a recent video on my other channel, I built a couple freeform bases, one on camera and one off camera. That's when I realized what my issue was. I'm trying to build and think the entire thing through on camera. Half my brain is thinking about the shot and how long it will be, and the other half is trying to design a complicated base with slopes along the side that all need to mesh together. So I'm switching things up and designing different chunks of the base off camera, and then when I have a portion figured out, I flip on the camera and build. This is proving to be a much easier way to go about freeforming, and I'm feeling much less pressure. I can try pieces and pull them off and rework things without messing up the time lapse. There's no reason to show you every single brick being put on the mock, so I think just filming key sections coming together will make for a more interesting video anyways. Now that the base is done, I can turn my attention to the terrain. I want to have a small creek winding its way through the mock. It's gonna have a bend toward the middle since I want to practice making a natural curve out of Lego. This creek will cut through, effectively dividing the mock in half, which will add some nice symbolism for the final scene I have in mind. After the plate is laid out, I'm going across the top and laying down trans black tile and plate to create the water. To further shape the creek, I'm lining the sides with reddish brown and dark orange slopes to create the banks. I use two colors to better showcase the shape of the creek. I find using all one color to build can sometimes hide the overall shape you're making and make it harder to see it and the smaller details. Plus, there's always different colored patches of dirt and rock around the water. The hard part of creating the shape is over, and now I can plate off the rest of the terrain. I'm using green slope to transition from the reddish brown creek banks to the green ground, since moss and grass will be growing up as close to the water as it can get. Let me know in the comments what you think of the freeform base, and if building more of it off camera improved how it turned out. This mock is going to be a forest-based build, but I want to include at least one man-made structure since I like to use these mocks as practice grounds and I want to get better at buildings. I'm making a simple woodshed out of 1x plate that is corrugated to look like wood logs. I used 4 stacks of regular 1x brick to make a frame. This is going to be an abandoned shed, so I used trans clear headlight bricks and cheese slope to create a cracked window pane. On the other side, I want to try something slightly different, so I used a couple half pegs to connect more trans clear parts to the underside of the 1x4. That way, when the 1x4 goes into the wall, the trans clear parts are upside down, creating an actual hole in the window. The rest of the frame will be brick built with a molded door going on the front. Roofs have always been tricky for me, so I'm just building a simple one of 2 plates connected by headlight bricks. This is a woodshed, so there'll be some extra logs stacked up against the wall and a chopping block to help with the world building. The ground looks too flat, so I'm adding a layer of plate to roughen things up. It's late spring in Europe, so the snow will be mostly melted, but there are still patches in shady areas like the corners of the shed where snow has also piled up from falling off the roof. I built some trees to add some height to the build. Now I can place the rest of the foliage. I'm sticking taller stem pieces along the sides of the creek and using more bushy big plants to cover patches of the ground. After that, I just need to add the minifigs, and of course, I can't forget the main feature of this whole video. It's late spring in Europe and German forces are stretched thin. Having been on a slow retreat for months, morale is low. There have been a couple last-ditch offensives to try and push the Allies back, but defeat is in the air. This group of German soldiers was enjoying some lunch when a massive Panther tank rumbles to a stop nearby. An officer emerges and barks for the men to make a report. Things are a little tense in the clearing as rumors have circulated of crazy German officers punishing soldiers for even the faintest hints of surrender or mutiny. Luckily, this grizzled veteran just wants an update on operations in the surrounding area before he and his crew move on to meet up with their new tank company. I am very pleased with this tank. It's well built, a great size, and just looks so cool. So cool, in fact, I had to build a second one. The only downside is the barrel doesn't move up or down, but that's something I can pretty easily fix. I really like how seamless the tank is. All the different sections fit together well, and I love the accurate representation of the sloped frontal armor. As I continue to gather more tanks and soldiers, I'm getting closer to making my first large-scale World War II mock, and I think you're really gonna like the battle I picked. That's it for this video. Don't forget to let me know what you think of the tank in the comments, and until next time, happy building.